Every channel has an unspoken philosophy, the values that shape what gets discussed and how we discuss it. Some channels are about activism, some others are about debunking, some are just here to stir controversy. But this one is about real thinking, real exploration, and real self-knowledge. I want us to have full permission to consider anything, without judgment, without accusations, and without the pressure to believe one particular thing or another. Welcome to the Metaphor of Gender. I'm Sasha, a therapist, and this is a channel for curious people who prefer deep thinking over dogma. We explore identity, meaning, and how to live life well. So today I want to share the core guiding principles of the Metaphor of Gender. I will always strive to express these principles in our videos and make this different from any other channel out there about gender. Principle number 1 is this. We use discernment when discussing psychological concepts. Over the past decade, mental health discourse has really exploded online. If you're Gen Z, you've grown up seeing psychological terms everywhere, on TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. And in many ways, it's great that people are more aware of their own mental health and the dynamics of their relationships. But when psychological concepts get memeified, and pop psychology buzzwords are shared by millions of people on the internet, meaningful ideas can get watered down and misapplied. They lose their context. The kind of content I'm thinking of tends to send 3 main messages. Either it tells you that you're perfect and everybody else is bad, or it tells you that you should just be blissfully happy no matter what's going on in your life, or that your emotions and experiences mean that you have a mental illness. To me, all of this is like the junk food of online mental health content. It can make us feel good, righteous, or even feel like we're in control. But superficial pop psychology can't help you make meaningful, important real-life decisions. We need more nuanced discussions. We need context. And frankly, we need to ask harder questions. Because you're not perfect, and you're also not broken. You are a complex human being. What I'm saying here is that we need to develop discernment. This is the skill of separating or distinguishing one thing from another. And it's one of the most important skills you need to develop to keep yourself safe in the world and to make wise choices. Sometimes you'll need to be patient and compassionate with yourself. And other times, you may need to be really brave and courageous to do something that challenges you. And we need to learn to deal effectively with inevitable disappointments in our relationships and in life. So here on the Metaphor of Gender, we'll explore concepts in psychology with depth and nuance, not just TikTok buzzwords. Which brings us to our second principle. Identity is complex. What is identity really? It's not just a term we pick from a list or a diagnostic label from the DSM. I'm really interested in identity, so we'll be talking a lot about this here. Identity evolves over time, and it's shaped by both nature and nurture. So some traits we have are deeply ingrained, while other traits change as we grow, shaped by our experiences and environments. And another thing that almost no one is talking about is that identity is a kind of negotiation that we all do between what we feel inside, how others experience us from the outside, and the way we engage with the world through our choices and relationships. And if you think about it, that's actually huge. Who you were at 12 is not who you are at 22. Regardless of the specific labels or categories that you fit into, and definitely not who you'll be at 42. And who you are with your grandparents is probably a bit different from who you are around your friends. Plus, there are developmental changes we go through, and there are seasons of life where certain priorities become more important than others. And all of these things contribute to our personal identity. But these days, identity is often treated like something you just understand by picking a label and viewing everything about yourself through this one single lens. And here's the thing. Sometimes identity labels or diagnoses really do help us understand ourselves or understand others. But sometimes they also limit us. They can keep us trapped in a rigid self-concept instead of helping us to grow and evolve. Labels can kind of become a story we tell ourselves about who we are, who we're supposed to be, what's wrong with us, or what's wrong with others. And rigid stories can blind us to what's really going on and limit our choices for how we respond. So on this channel, when we talk about labels or identities, we'll try not to immediately jump to conclusions, and we'll try to engage with more patience and curiosity about these concepts. Principle number 3. Introspection is powerful, but it can also become a trap. It's really good to reflect on who you are and why you do things. But have you ever spent so much time analyzing your emotions and behaviors and social interactions that you actually felt more stuck? This is called rumination, and it's not the same thing as self-awareness. Lots of you are very intelligent over-analyzers. And we're going to keep that in mind so we can stay focused on valuable exploration that helps you engage with your real life, and we'll try to avoid hyper-analysis of minutia that becomes counterproductive and stagnates your growth. Principle number 4 is that psychological flexibility is a strength. The more psychologically flexible you are, the freer you become. Psychological flexibility means being able to fully experience what you're going through and look at the situation from multiple angles. To think about things in different ways with an open mind and a curious perspective. Remember, all ideas, thoughts, and feelings are allowed here. The reason psychological flexibility is so important is because a lot of us assume that we can make decisions completely consciously and based on logic and reasoning. But in reality, most of our reactions start with a gut feeling, and then we build arguments around that feeling to justify it. We all do this so automatically, we don't even notice it's happening. But if we don't see that process playing out in ourselves, or at least get better at noticing it, we can easily mistake our instincts for objective truth. We can become prisoners of our initial reactions instead of being wise thinkers who engage critically with our own beliefs. So on this channel, we'll practice noticing when our minds are doing this, when we're retrofitting arguments to match our feelings instead of considering the full picture. We'll also explore ways that our behaviors could be meeting unconscious needs, and when we're sort of on autopilot rather than making deliberate, thoughtful choices. Now, the goal is not to get rid of our instincts or emotions. They're necessary and they're very valuable. But we want to see reality clearly. So we have to balance intuition with rationality, passion with discernment, and certainty with curiosity. And speaking of reality, this brings us to principle number 5. Reality deals with trade-offs, not perfect solutions. I love exploring ideas openly. I love hypothetical scenarios, philosophical concepts, and all that other esoteric stuff. But at the end of the day, we all live here on planet Earth, where reality is real. Some people believe that everything is completely subjective, but I'm not one of those people. Certain things are concrete and objective. So when you're trying to figure out a solution or a strategy for something in your life that has concrete, objective, and real parameters, then we're dealing with trade-offs, not perfect magical solutions. Take medical transition, for example. Some people online claim that taking hormones has no risks at all. But that's just not true. Every medical intervention involves some trade-offs. Even something as commonplace as headache medicine has trade-offs. So here on the channel, when we talk about gender-related medical interventions, we're going to be honest with ourselves about trade-offs. On this channel, we like to keep one foot in reality. And the truth is, most things in life are not 100% certain. Now, none of this means that you should or shouldn't do something. It means that it's better to think critically and make informed choices that acknowledge the trade-offs involved. This way, you can make sober, conscious, and informed decisions for yourself. Principle number 6, develop a broad behavioral repertoire. What do I mean by a behavioral repertoire? This is the entire set of behavioral choices that you can access and execute in response to things that you experience in your life. Let me give you an example. If you experience a lot of social anxiety, and the only tool you have in your behavioral repertoire is avoidance, that gives you very few choices about how to respond if someone invites you to a get-together at their house. The only choice you would have is to avoid it. You'd have to say no. Now, of course, that helps you avoid the social anxiety, but it also shrinks your world and limits your choices. You would need a broader set of responses to choose from. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes even avoidance is a really good strategy to use, but it shouldn't be your only strategy, and it shouldn't be used in every single context. On this channel, we'll learn ways to expand your behavioral repertoire so you can engage with your life in lots of different ways and actually grow your capacity rather than shrinking yourself down. And finally, the core of TMOG, principle number 7, metaphor is our methodology. Some truths cannot be captured by statistics or research alone. They need to be explored through story and through metaphor. That's what we do here. Why? Because the way we make sense of the world isn't just through raw data, it's through meaning. Let me give you a really simple example. Imagine you see a study that says people who smile more tend to be happier. Seems obvious, right? But if you take that information at face value, you might conclude that forcing yourself to smile all the time will make you happy. And yet anyone who's ever worked in customer service, plastering a fake smile on for hours at a time, knows that that's not how happiness works. The reality is more complex. Maybe it's that happier people naturally smile more. Maybe certain cultural expectations affect who smiles and when. Maybe there are underlying personality differences at play, or a whole set of other possibilities. So the data gives us a piece of the puzzle, but it doesn't tell us the whole story. And if we just take that raw number without understanding the narrative behind it, we risk misinterpreting reality. This happens all the time with conversations about gender and identity. People will pull up research papers or statistics and say, "You see, this number proves that I'm right." But numbers don't speak for themselves. They exist within a context. And that's where metaphorical thinking comes in. Metaphors allow us to express things that are difficult to quantify, like identity, longing, or inner conflict. They give us a way to capture truths that don't fit neatly into a spreadsheet. For example, when someone says they feel stuck, that's a metaphor. They're not literally stuck, like their foot isn't caught in cement or something. But that word stuck paints a picture of what they're experiencing. They feel trapped. They don't see a way to move forward. Maybe they're overwhelmed by choices, or maybe they feel powerless in some way. A purely analytical approach might try to solve this using a list of options. But without understanding the emotional reality of why the person feels stuck, the solutions are not going to actually help. So on the metaphor of gender, we don't just analyze, we try to interpret. We look at the deeper symbolic meaning of things. Earlier, I emphasized that some things are concrete and objectively true. But there are other things in life which are much more blurry. Sometimes we get locked into one perspective without realizing that there are other possibilities and angles we can take. Metaphors help us shift our perspective, and then new insights can emerge. So throughout this channel, we'll be using metaphors, stories, and psychological frameworks to explore identity in a way that's deeper than just labels, diagnoses, or data points. Because real understanding isn't about memorizing facts. It's about learning how to see clearly. If these ideas resonate with you, stick around. This isn't a channel for easy answers. It's a place for deep curiosity, radical honesty, and frankly, better questions. Okay, that's it for today. Keeping one foot in reality and one in possibility. I'll see you next time. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. That really helps me to keep this channel going. And please tell me your thoughts below. And look, if you're wondering, why is gender a metaphor? Then click here to watch this video. Thanks and see you next time. This information is meant for educational purposes only, and not as a substitute for mental health services.